Hi everyone, this is Lisa Cronin from It's Little Things in Card Making, and I've been wanting to do this video on a product that I absolutely love. It's an ink. It's Crafter's Companion Spectrum Noir Sparkle Inks, and they're beautiful. But there are some tips that I'd like to share so that if you use them or if you purchase them, kind of be aware of some of the pitfalls of these inks, and actually any inks with sparkle or glitter in them. The same thing happens. But the colors are beautiful. I think there's about 30. I believe I have all of them. And I wanted to show you a couple of examples of what happens with these inks. Did I say they were beautiful? They're really beautiful. If I find a product that I'm really happy with and I'm excited about, I've had these inks, probably since they first came out, a couple of years now, and they've just been adding to the line different colors. They're so easy to work with, and the results usually, if properly done, are outstanding. So these inks have sparkle in them, just like the Spectrum Noir pens, same exact ink. They're a little cheaper, the ones in the little jars, because you're not paying for the pen and the mechanism designed inside the pen, which gives you, most of the time, equal amounts of sparkle and color. And I say most of the time. And typically what I was doing before the jars came out is I would squeeze my pen and I would put some, in a little well and, draw from that. And there's two ways but I don't do that anymore. It's much more cost effective to get the jars. They're so pigmented. And because they're so pigmented, they can be diluted quite a bit. And I very rarely use any of these inks without diluting them. This is an example of their lightest shades. Well, this is a mixture that I put together of these two colors here. But this is their lightest shades. This is a swatch I made. I put it on top of each jar. And that could be diluted so much more, and you would get a very similar color. That's how pigmented it is. Also, I want you to see all sparkle ends up coming down to the bottom. I wanted this to be a quick video. I don't know if that's really going to happen. So that, you have to shake it. And as you use it, you have to shake it. I would never take from the jar. It's just too concentrated. There's too much sparkle in it. And that could be a problem. And I did a review on these. HSN had them. And that's where I've been purchasing them from. And I did a review on them. You can check it out. It's under Junie Moon. That's the name I used. And I asked, is it possible to have too much sparkle? And I said, yes, it is possible. If the ink is not applied properly, you get, because it's silver sparkle, so you will get heavy-duty, concentrated sparkle marks on your project. And that happens when there's a little bit of pooling, or if you go over the same area a couple of times. Remember what sparkle inks are. They're ink and they're sparkle. The ink is going to soak into the paper. The sparkle is not going to soak into the paper. It's not a liquid. As tiny as those little particles are, and they're very tiny, you could see, I'm hoping that you can see the sparkle, they're going to stay on top of your paper. So if you put a concentrated amount and keep going over, or you kind of double brush or drop down color without distributing it, you're going to get these silver concentrated marks. And, I don't like that. If I'm buying a color sparkle, I want to see the color. can see up here how concentrated it was. Same color on this side. Difference was I applied it differently. And it makes a huge difference. The distribution of not just the color, but the sparkle. It's uniformed. And that's kind of what I want to show you. I have a couple more examples here. This is one that I did because I love doing backgrounds. And you can see, I don't know what that is, but you could see here the distribution of the sparkle. It actually covers the color. You don't even see the color anymore. This was supposed to be a background. And again, the concentration of color. I mean, I keep these because I may be able to use them, but I keep them. This was a horror. So you can see how that sparkle literally just covered all of the color. And I'm using my darker paper so that I could make it easier for you to see. Look at this one. These were supposed to be galaxy backgrounds. And, yeah, not so much. This, I mean, if I turn it a certain way, you can't even see any color. So I wanted to go over how to use these inks and any other sparkle inks, whether they be sprays or pens, so that you're, whatever you're doing, you can get the best result. I don't know, maybe you want something like this. Maybe it could be Cosmo-like, and just, a cluster of stars looking like. I don't really care for it. And this one, unfortunately, the inking was beautiful, but I won't use it for that purpose because of this. And you can't get it off. You can't dilute it. You can't go over it and wipe it off. It doesn't work like that. And then but I want to show you some successes as well. So here it doesn't look so bad, but when you turn it a certain way, you'll see more concentration, like right in here, where there's less sparkle here, more sparkle here. I don't like that. I want it to look like uniform throughout the whole thing. I can cover that up so I could still use this background. And this was a disaster. Now, I do a lot of ombre inking, and I can get more saturated color by going over my project more than once. So this is an ombre background that I made. And I'm hoping you can see this. The distribution, not just of the color, but of the sparkle, it's perfect. I mean, it's perfect. This one as well. The ombre may not be as smooth as the other. It's perfect up here till it gets to here. And then you start seeing the striations of my brush marks. So even though it's not perfect, I'll probably use this and see if I can get away with it. This one was good. This one has an even distribution of color and even distribution of sparkle. And I'm bringing this out because it's such a good product. And if it's not used properly, you're going to think, oh, gosh, what did I do? So the first thing that I want to mention is that sparkle that you see on the bottom. This is all the sparkle here. When I use my jars, I want sparkle, but I don't want all the sparkle. So I am not going to wait until all that sparkle is distributed in the ink. I don't want all that sparkle. Then what I do is I take out a little bit and I use a spoon after I've shaken it to the point where I feel like, okay, that's enough sparkle for me, and I leave the rest on the bottom. I take a little spoon, and a little goes a long way. Maybe, this is a tiny spoon. This is a tiny spoon. Maybe 2 spoonfuls. And I have my colors set up here, and I didn't put any water in them. These little wells here are actually the packaging that these come in. There's a plastic on the top, and there's a plastic on the bottom, and you get 3 of them in a set. And it just helps with keeping the inks stable during packaging. I save them. I save these little packaging plastics. And this is what I use as well if I'm not going to be doing a lot. If I know that I'm going to be doing maybe 10 backgrounds, this is all I'll use. And this literally is just 2 spoonfuls of this. And you can see how flat it is. It's really, a little bit goes a long way. This is the purple that I made using the pink and the blue. I want to do backgrounds, kind of snowy, icy, frozen type of backgrounds for some holiday cards. So I did some last night, and I figured I want to do more today. And again, I didn't water them down. Now, I don't know, because I moved it around a little bit. You can actually see, I'm hoping you can see, you can see the sparkle settling to the bottom. So whatever instrument you use, whatever brush you use or what have you, you're going to have to kind of twirl it around. Because if that sparkle sits on the bottom and you go in there with a brush, you're not going to get much sparkle because it's still all on the bottom. So by using a smaller well versus dipping into the jar, which I say is a no-no, you have a little more control over how much sparkle you get. You're going to see how pigmented these are, because this is full strength, and I am going to water down these inks, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did here. So I'm just going to water them down a little bit with my little mister, and maybe, 3 or 4 squirts. And I'm going to say I'm almost doubling what was in there before. So I'm going to put this to the side. I have some paper towels here, and I have a board. Ugh, spilled my water. I have the board that I use when I'm doing my inking. It just makes it easy for me to dry it, because I heat set it. I don't heat set it where it's dry. I heat set it until I don't see any more glistening wet ink on top of my paper. And what I did was I just put a little bit of water. I'm afraid if I move this closer, I won't have enough working room, because it does take a little bit of working room here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my small brush, very small brush. I'm using Bristol Smooth cardstock. And this is my most favorite cardstock to use. And the reason why I really like it is because it can take a lot of water, but also the water stays wet. The ink stays wet on top of the card a little longer. So I like that, because I'm able to use my colors. And you see I'm kind of swirling it around, because I don't want a big concentration of too much ink or too much shimmer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little bit of painting. Now, if I left that there, that glob of ink, I'm going to get this. So I want to make sure that I spread out my ink as uniformed as possible, as even as possible. And I'm even using my paper towel. I'm using my paper towel to get off some of the excess ink, because I don't want it building up. I don't want it hiding the ink color underneath a lot of sparkle. So that was this one here. And when it dries, it's going to dry a little darker, and it will sparkle more. Now I'm going to just dampen my brush. I'm going to go into the pink. And again, I'm swirling around. And now I'm just going to use my brush to paint on. And remember, I diluted these. So I'm taking off whatever excess I'm not using to make sure that I don't get any globs of silver anywhere. So what I'm doing is the ink is going into the paper, but I'm making sure that that sparkle is evenly distributed, because I don't want a glob. Now I'm going to go for the blue. And I have 3 wells of water here. So if I go into a red or a pink, to make sure it's off my brush, I'll put it into 2 wells of water. And I'm turning my ink. And this is water reactive, and you can see what happened there. A little bit of water had gotten onto that ink, so it's reacting. Similar, very similar to, oxides. And I'm just making sure that it's an even coat. And this is because this is not a review. This really is more like a technique. I'm going to see if I can get rid of those little spots by going over it again. I'm not grabbing any more ink. I'm just distributing what's there. And a little bit more water. So my color is pretty much uniformed. Now this is if I'm doing ombre or fades, where it's darker on the bottom, gets lighter as you go up. If I'm going to be dropping ink down, then that's a totally different technique. Then I use my water bottle to my mister to push the ink around, and I can see where there's a buildup of ink, and I can just spray on that buildup and get that sparkle distributed. So I'm going to take my heat gun, which, by the way, is one of the best tools I ever bought. I used to leave all my backgrounds to dry naturally. And, well, I kind of wanted to use everything right away, and to keep it drying overnight or for a few hours, this is great. Because even though it's not drying it completely, it's drying it enough where the colors are going to stop blending. They're going to stop moving. And that's all I want. I kind of want to suspend whatever's there at the time. And even though I'm saying I'm drying it, it's not completely dry. And those colors are going to continue to move. So now here is... Wasn't that quick? Wasn't that fast? I love that thing. I need another one because I always have to have a backup. But look at the distribution of that sparkle. I mean, if I want a darker color, I can go over it. I'll go over the blue one. And you can see, even though I diluted it, I can get a more intense color by just going over it again. And I will also get more sparkle. And using my paper towel to get off the excess, so I'm not picking up paint here and picking up ink here and putting it down over here. I'm not doing that. I am making sure that I have an even coverage all the way around. And this is how I do my ombres. I do it with a brush, a thicker one, a bigger one. And it's how I do my fades. So now we have a darker, and you can see the difference here. And this was diluted. This was not diluted. This is 2 coats, this is 1. So even if you dilute it, which I think is so important to dilute because they're so pigmented, it's going to be hard to control whatever blends you want to do. That's how pigmented these inks are. I think they're beautiful. I think once you know how to work with them, I think you're going to get great results. Again, I wouldn't talk about a product unless I've used it for a long time and I've tested it and I've made mistakes on it and I've had successes. So I can tell you the difference of what will happen if you just, just put it down and just think it's going to blend on its own. That's not going to happen. You have to move these inks. And I move them either with a brush or I move them with my Mr. Bottle. And it's so much fun. Most of the time, you're not going to know what you're going to get until it's completely dry. But after a while, you're going to learn where to put down your inks. You're going to learn what blends well. You have to have some knowledge of color theory. I think that's kind of important. But that's it. I mean, you don't need to know more than you're really not supposed to put purple with yellow. You're going to get brown unless you want brown. So I love the fact we can mix these inks. Remember, these inks were these 2 put together. I wanted to stay with these tones. I want my backgrounds to have these tones. And really quickly, I'll show you some of the backgrounds that I did last night. So, some of them will have more sparkle than others, but the blends are there. And the distribution of that sparkle, even here where I have a concentration of color, I don't have a heavy concentration of sparkle. And when I do a session, I try to stay with the same colors to do maybe 20 backgrounds, 25 backgrounds. And I do that for lots of reasons. If I want to duplicate a card, if I want to do some die cutting, I want to stay with the same tones and colors. And all of them. The distribution of the shimmer and the glitter in this ink is so, and this was sprayed. This I didn't use a brush. So, I mean, again, you got to play. You got to see what works for you and what doesn't. Some will have more than others depending upon how much I distributed that ink. So obviously I've distributed that sparkle as well. This is actually one of my favorites. This is another one of my favorites. I just love making backgrounds. I think making your own backgrounds, getting the colors that you want, priceless. Priceless. These are beautiful, beautiful inks. If you have them and you've tried them and you're frustrated because you're not getting a good result, try them again. Dilute them. Use a smaller well. I know I'm going to make a lot of cards and I'm going to use these inks. Believe it or not. Where is it? What I will use is an ice cube tray. Because I want my colors to stay consistent. If I put just a little bit in, and I go, oh, I need a little bit more, and I put a little more, maybe a little darker because I'm not diluting it the same way I did the first time. So this is what I use when I know I'm going to be making 50, 75 backgrounds. This is what I'll use. If not, I'll use the packaging that came with the inks. They're beautiful inks. Again, if you're not having good results, try it again. Try diluting. Try brushing them on. They're great inks. And that's all I can say. And that's 22 minutes, 23 minutes of gushing about these inks. And I don't gush about a lot. Anyway, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for following me. I want to thank you for all your subscriptions, your likes, your comments. Any questions, please put them in the comment section. I will always answer them. So this is Lisa Cronin. And remember, it's the little things in card making. I hope to see you soon again. Bye now.